Today on the Scenic Route podcast, we go deep. And that's thanks to Casey Kang Head, who so candidly explores deep seated emotional scars, societal pressures, and the transformative power of resilience with me. So join us as she recounts her battle with cancer and how she turned her experience into a source of strength for herself and others. Hi, and welcome to the Scenic Route podcast, where we believe in embracing life's journey with purpose, curiosity, and a bit of potty humor. I'm one uncool mom, and I'm always looking out for that perfect slice of gluten-free rhubarb pie. Every week, I get the joy of sitting down with dreamers and doers who dare to take the road less traveled in pursuit of their own magic. Together, we dive into the inspiring stories of soulful entrepreneurs and visionary leaders who boldly share their beliefs, lessons, and fuck-ups. Excited? So am I. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And now, let's take this conversation off the beaten track. Meet Casey Kang Head, a 3-time survivor of acute lymphoblastic leukemia and dedicated advocate for cancer survivors. Through her expertise as an author, personal trainer, nutritionist, yoga instructor, and certified specialist, Casey makes sure that survivors learn how to reclaim their life and learn how to live differently to ensure they are stronger physically, mentally, and emotionally. Casey is the author of Finding Your Way Back to Heart Center, Cancer Treatment, Now What? And she's also a dog mom to Lily. Casey, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am Jennifer. I'm just so grateful to be here with you today.
That is so sweet. I'm always so genuinely astonished, amazed, excited that people are like, "Oh, I want to come on your podcast." I'm like, "Really? Okay, thank you." This is I don't know. It's such a joy each and every time. And today, I'm sure we're gonna get into a lot of juicy things. But first, Casey, we heard a bit about your bio in the intro, but now in your own words, give us an idea of who you are, what you do, what were your journey, the stories that shaped you, your big crossroads.
Before I was diagnosed in 2014 of cancer, I was very career driven, very goal oriented, trying to chase this quote unquote dream that we have of, a successful life, not according to my own terms, but according to society.
Yeah.
And then in 2014, February 14th, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And immediately my world changed overnight. I went into the hospital and immediately started treatment. 4 months into that, I had a stroke from the chemotherapy, had to relearn how to use my entire left side of my body. Fast forward to 18 months later when my treatment protocol finished. 7 weeks after that, I relapsed for the first time. Chemotherapy wasn't working. We tried an immunotherapy that failed. Then I was supposed to go on a clinical trial. It ended up being shut down a week before I was supposed to go on. So it was basically like, what next? So the long story short is we wrote a letter of compassion to the FDA and the drug manufacturer for a moonshot of a drug that was not for my cancer, which was approved.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. It got me into remission, had a stem cell transplant. Then 6 months later, relapsed for the second time. So then we did the immunotherapy first because they wanted the stem cell on the back burner just in case. And we basically, fingers crossed, hoped it worked. And I have been in remission ever since. I hit my 5-year mark last year. And thank you. And
congratulations.
It was more, what do I do now? And there's this struggle of yes, I could go back to corporate America working 50 plus hours a week, but that brought me no joy, because I went back to work during treatment and I just hated it. Every moment I just hated. I was commuting 2 hours a day and I was just miserable.
Too much. Yeah, that's too long.
Purpose. So I have always been into health and fitness, and I started talking about how I rebuilt my body and how I'm overcoming survivorship and fear. And the more I talked about it, struggling and then overcoming, the more women were asking me how I did it. And I was like, oh, there might be something here. So then I started to coach women, and I said, if I just even help one person, one human, feel not what I felt, which was like that you're broken, I did my job. But then it became, how many can I help? And like kind of an obsession. And I was going down the slippery slope of working over 50 hours a week again, because now it's my business and I'm obsessed with it.
And you want it to succeed. I mean, I get it. And I'm sure like a lot of you who are at the beginning or looking back to where you started can totally relate, right? Because you want it to succeed. It's your baby in a way, right? You're like, I want this bad. I'm willing to like kneel down and put it to work.
Like I felt like it was a gift from the universe that I had this drive to create a program based on, yes, what I did, but like in such a way that helps so many women that it just like became, you're right, it's like birthing a child. You're like, this is my baby and I wanted to do the best that it can. So it led to me, unfortunately, burning myself out and not seeing the signs and symptoms along the way.
All the red flags are like, nope, ignoring that one, like ignoring that
while still trying to live a very healthy life, because I don't want to go through this again.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd say me before I was diagnosed with chronic illnesses, plurals, like I was kind of like, oh, I'm invincible. Kind of like you, I mean, rightly so, right? Our bodies are fucking amazing. But when you go through a period or a moment or something where you're like, ooh, actually I'm not that invincible. Like, you're like, ooh, maybe, like, I know maybe you have a better understanding of what is there to lose, right? If you've always been healthy, yes, you can be empathetic, and you like, I understand, but it hits different when you're like, I actually know what I can potentially lose, and I cannot afford to go there again. Get there.
Scared the living daylights out of me, because I was like, oh my God, I'm stressing myself out. Like, I can't go through that again. Like, because I know about stress and cortisol impacts our health. And I was already, sacrificing my personal life for this. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm potentially sacrificing health. It made me step back, honestly.
I'm curious. I want to circle back because it's not a term I'm super familiar with. And I'm like, maybe some people had questions. You said you had to work yourself on, and you also work with women on overcoming survivorship. I'm just curious, like, can you tell me more about what you define as survivorship and what the obstacles there are that women face that are there to like overcome?
So survivorship to me is any time along the journey is survivorship, because you're literally surviving every single day. So in my opinion, from the time you were diagnosed, the long afterward, and it could be the rest of your life. And oftentimes women are filled with a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. They are really struggling emotionally to understand, like, what does this mean for my life? How do I want to feel more like my old self, but I know everything's different. And then there's also like the actual physical side effect from going to treatment. A lot of women are thrust into medically induced menopause. There's mobility issues. There's, constant management of lymphedema potentially because of surgery. So there's a lot of layers to this that it's not just like one thing. It's really complex.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's also what I quite possibly is a grief element to it, right? You're grieving parts of your old self. And at the same time, I suppose when you go, I know it from my mom who had breast cancer. You go to therapy, you meet people, you bond with people, you sit through chemo together. And not all of them made it. So there's quite a lot of layers of grief as well, personal, interpersonal. And I'm wondering also, I don't know. Oh, there's some element of guilt.
Not only for surviving, but also the massive impact that what you just went through had on your family as well. Because it's not just you. You are the person going through it. But as you know, with your mom, you all go through it together.
Yeah. Oh, I relate so deeply. Every time I tell my kid, look, I cannot do this right now with you because I'm not well enough. Right. It breaks my fucking heart. Right? The guilt, it not all day, every day of all the days, but there are moments where I'm the guilt is crushing because you're yes, I want to play with you, but I know if I do that right now, that specific play you want to do, I'll pay for it later by maybe not getting out of bed. And so it's a constant of what is possible right now. And there's always something else to do, and that's all fine. But you also kind of need to let that emotion of guilt start,
so you can let it go. But often,
otherwise it's just back in the cupboard, and then at some point the cupboard explodes because it keeps all your guilt emotions or something.
True. It's like any emotion. It's holding on to anger or the sadness. It's you have to literally process it, let it go, so you can move on. Otherwise, it's just it sits in the inside of you and festers. And when it festers, it gets moldy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And when it gets moldy, it's not good for you. It's going to eat you away.
What was a way that worked for you processing those emotions? Especially knowing that it fosters and it's not good for you, and you are in remission. It's not, or and it's not I don't know. You want to get better. To get better, you have to have less stress. You have to feel better. You have to let go of guilt and sadness, and you have to process. It's almost kind of as there is a pressure to deal with those emotions. I don't know. Do you want
so
go into that?
That is where either you get stuck and you don't process it and you are just kind of miserable a lot, or you actually address it so you can move on and heal. And for me, I'm one of those people that all through my childhood and up to cancer, would have been one of those people who just locks it in a cage and shoves it down, never talks about it again.
I think that's our default mode anyway, right? For most of us at the beginning, because I don't know, maybe the next generation will be different, but I mean, thanks, Mom and Dad. My parents were not emotionally equipped, at all. So I had to learn, and I had to learn it, and I'm still learning lots of it. And it only became really obvious that I'm like, ooh, there's some parts missing when I suddenly had a child. And I'm like, oh, we probably should not repeat that. So let's break that cycle. But how do we do that?
Right? Like, how do you break the pattern? And so and
how do you address with emotions? Like, how do you not just sweep it back under the rug and hope it goes away when you don't look? Like, I don't know, Schrodinger's emotion.
Because I wanted to, trust me, there wasn't a part of me that was like, let's dive in.
oh, I'm in that boat, sister. I wanted it really, really bad.
Like, if we could sweep it under the rug and move on, we would. Right?
We are such a good sweeper.
We'd be the best sweepers in the entire world.
Yeah, I'm an Enneagram 7, so anything that doesn't feel fun and exciting to me, I'm like, sweep, sweep, sweep.
And so, unfortunately for me, that came out when I hit an ugly, messy rock bottom. Like, I literally came home from work one day, threw my bag on the ground, and just broke down in front of my husband at the time, and massive amount of tears and emotion. And he was like, what happened at work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is going on? Yeah. Like, what was that catastrophic thing that must have happened?
What happened at work? Like, he's freaking out. And I'm like, it's not work. And I'm like trying to hide from myself because no, there's nowhere to hide.
Oh, poor lad. Yeah.
Know what to do. You kind of within shock. Like, this is the first time you've had this much emotion ever. I don't know what to do with it in this way. And he ended up calling my dad and his mom, and they came over to help support because no one knew what to do. And I just was beyond mortified and embarrassed of what was happening because I was so strong during treatment. What is wrong with me? Again, going back to no one talked about it. Survivors, there's a lot of shame around feeling that way. We should just be grateful to be alive, right? But we don't often feel that.
Yeah. And also probably that element. Yes,
right.
You're alive, so be happy now, right? You got what you want. You're still alive, so be happy now. Damn it.
Right?
Okay, true.
Exactly. Which is why I went back to working 50 hours a week, 2 hours commute a day. And do
you feel like you still had some element of
oh yeah, that didn't to go away.
To prove to yourself that you could still do it.
And that night is really what catapulted me to address it. And I said, I'm going to break the pattern. I go, clearly the coping mechanism that I learned my entire life isn't working. I've got to do something different. And I dove in. I literally went in intensive therapy. I did a healing retreat, all these things that really some of it worked, some of it didn't. I hodgepodged it together because I didn't feel a lot of.
Well, I mean, you don't know what will work for you and what will resonate, right? For some, it's that book, and for others, is it that journaling question or whatever? You don't know, right? Until you're curious, you try different things, you're like, wow, %.
And I wasted a lot of time on shit that didn't work. And it was quite frustrating.
I'm intrigued. What was let's share both of the thing. Let's each share one of the shit things that didn't work.
Right. Where do I start? I know, right?
Pick your best fighter.
So I went to, honestly, this is what did not work for me. I went to a support group, and the whole point of this particular session was survivorship. That was the focus on how to get out of it. This woman had this wonderful presentation, very professional, not a survivor herself. And everything that she said didn't make any sense. It was go back to living your life and just forget about what happened. It was
That doesn't, no, that doesn't sound very elfish.
Yeah.
That sounds like a big sweep.
That's kind of what she was preaching.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, that's
Right.
And then
Super not
everyone
that was there was kind of like wanted to stay in that victim mentality of like, yeah, we went through cancer. Like, can't you understand? Like, oh my God, it's me. Like, like, and I was just like, I don't want to sit here. I was like, I can't, like, I want to live again. Like, what are you doing? And then finally, this gentleman in this session stood up, and I'm not kidding. He looked very angry, and he goes to the woman, "This is all great info, but how the F does this work for me?" And I just was like, "What? Boy, get me out of here! Oh boy, get me out of here!" I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I was like, can I just leave? Like, I literally was like, I'm not comfortable at all. I was like, get me out. And that was probably the worst experience that I had. Because if everyone's not on the same page to heal, it's awful. So that's the takeaway. Like if everyone's not on the same page, wants the same thing, it's a recipe for disaster. And just sitting there talking about the struggle isn't actually helpful to move forward.
Yeah, there's a point where talking about it helps, but gotta follow it up with something else. And I mean, yeah, I told them like mine was very similar. But I mean, I had to do like a quick detour of my psychotherapist, my psychologist telling me like, I'm not really sure if you're like fully acknowledging the scope of your like illness and being unwell. I'm like, I'm fine. Right. I had to do this quick detour of like, oh shit, it's actually bad. But it didn't really change the setting of. It doesn't make me feel. Yeah, I appreciate the community and support deeply, but it doesn't make me feel any better if I'm around a bunch of most people. Like it just.
No, I agree with you. Like we can't help what happened, so why are we sitting in it? Like we can't change what's already happened. Like we can't go back where we have no time machines. So we can only.
Yeah, well, yeah. That sounds a lot of like we're going into the topic of releasing, which right, like how can you like walk that tightrope between and between yes, this happened, this is a part of me now. I'll never get back the old me. She's gone. She's dead. She bye-bye. And at the same time, like that gray area of like, I am this new person. I am discovering myself. And at the same time, kind of like not being fully defined by it. Also like letting shit be in the past while also acknowledging that gray space between those poles of like, I don't know, I forget all the shit that ever happened. I don't give a fuck. Like completely oblivious. And the part of like, I'm moping around of all the bad things that ever happened. Like, how do we navigate through those?
It's a great question. And I feel as though for me, it is so, like, I still live with chronic pain, and there's a lot of things that I can't do because of my stroke. Like, that body, I'm never going to be able to do certain things. Like, it's the byproduct of what happened. Mm-hmm. Does it make me miss that I'm not able to? Of course. Like, wouldn't I want to go back? Of course. Like, that's not the question. The question is, I can't. So what can I do going forward? And so for me, it was like, I had to create a new identity of a woman who, yes, this is a part of her story a chapter in her book, but she is not stuck on that page, and he is creating a new chapter. And the story has yet to, the book is yet to be finished. Still so much.
Yeah. It's just another chapter. Just another chapter. I'm still the same book, still the same cover.
Right.
Maybe you changed the font, but it's still like, yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I had to look at it was like, it's not that I'm letting go of that person completely. Like that she served her purpose. She was great while she was there. I took the best part.
She got you through chemo like multiple times. She's amazing. She's a warrior, right? Like,
but at the same time, like I couldn't be that same person continuing going forward. Like I took the best parts of her with me.
Yeah, we served her purpose. Like that persona of you served her purpose.
She did her job well, and I took the best parts of her with me, but I let go of the parts that like no longer served me. The obsessed about like this goal of life, or I don't even know, that society puts on us. And
you can substitute with anything, right? Like, I mean, if you can't relate to the illness, like if you're listening and you cannot relate to the illness bit, then like, thank heavens. And but I mean, it's the same for business, right? Like there is a point where you feel like, oh, I kind of like have to shed parts of myself to go on bigger things, right? Like, I mean, if you starting out and you're realizing I'm kind of like at a plateau, it's not, I don't know, it feels like I'm stuck, then maybe you kind of have to look at what brought you there and what you have to shed or who you have to become to get where you want to go next.
100%. It's growth and evolution over a lifetime. Like, we're not 18 anymore. I don't want to be 18 anymore.
Right. Oh God, no. 18 was no. Oh God. I mean, I would take late 20s for sure. I would like, yeah, I'm good with that. Like, cool. But an 18, no, God. No, keep 18. No.
You think about it in that context of like,
yes,
we're not that woman who was 18. Like, why do we expect to be the same woman after a massive trauma or life change? Like, we're not. Like, it's like giving birth to a kid. Like, there's life before the kid and there's life after.
Yeah, and at the same time, yeah, and like this is where I know I'll get eye rolls. I can already get through like of like the multidimensionality of time, right? Like, yes, you're not that person anymore, and at the same time, you still
100%,
right? The same way as you're not like 6 years old again anymore, but you're still the little kid inside of you, and he comes out every now and then to remind you.
I think you nailed it. That's so true. It is. Like, we have protector parts of us that like broke this tantrum.
I know, but that's so, I mean, this is so interesting, right? Like how some of us have, although they embrace change, maybe on paper, where they think they embrace change, who have such a hard time with letting go of identities and emotions and roles that no longer serve them. Why do you think that? How do you explain that?
That is, I don't, honestly, I think it becomes a part of you. Like, so, for example, like, in regards to like someone surviving cancer, like you get stuck in that I am this person instead of moving forward and like, yeah, I had cancer versus like, I am cancer. Like, I'm not cancer. I had it. Yeah. But I'm not cancer.
Yeah.
Like, it's not who I am.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good example. Yes, yes. I never really thought about it. I kind of like intuitively did that. Like I say, I don't say I'm a celiac, because I don't fucking identify as a celiac person. I say, oh, by the way, you gotta have, it has to be gluten free. I have celiac. I'm someone who happens to have celiac. Right. I'm not a celiac. I'm like, that's not a role I want to identify with. That, no. And that was just like, yeah, that's, thank you for saying that. That was the first time I'm like, that's actually spoken out loud and into what I kind of like did. But yeah, some sort of, yeah.
Right.
I'm like, no, I'm not that.
Depth you, Jennifer, than just a disease. Like, or just a chronic illness. Like that.
Which feels hard which again is something some of you will shrug off, and others who can relate will fucking cry when you tell them that 3 times, right? Because it feels so all-consuming at times that you really have to sit down and ask yourself, what am I apart from the things that happen to me?
Right. That is exactly it. Like, this thing happened to you. It's not who you are.
Okay. So let's look at the same coin, but the flip side, right? Like we said, I am thinking out loud. So we said, okay, you're not like the things that happen to you, right? You're not cancer, you're not a victim. You happen to be in situations that harmed you, or the whole thing. So the same coin, and this is gonna be tough for some, I'm sure, is the good thing, the things all people want, right? Like when you're in business, you want to have your first 100K launch or your first 10K month or whatever it is you want so desperately that it's on your vision board. And people kind of forget that if you happen to have 100K launch, you're not then a successful person. It's not really working like that.
You are the successful person the minute you have a client or something else. Like, the money is a byproduct of that.
I mean, even before that, the moment you kind of decide
you're an entrepreneur,
right?
You're
like, I mean, yes, you having a business requires people giving money to do certain things, to actually make money and have a living and stuff like that. But you're kind of like like your validation has to come from yourself. Your self-validation has to be before. You cannot say, oh, I'll be a successful entrepreneur if I had 100K launch, I don't know, a 50K, 250K months in a row, and whatever the heck else.
You already have to know. It's kind of like the minute you just start something like a business, you are successful. Most people don't start their own businesses. Like, look.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And like, because I feel that a lot of the things, that's one of the more common things. Like, we talked about burnout before, right? When you said like, oh, you work. It was kind of like your new business was your baby. You put in the work, you put in the hours. Like, yes, that's one quite real side of burnout in entrepreneurship, right? You're hustling to the ground. You've won it so bad, you put in the hours. But I feel like a more sneaky side of burnout is when you actually haven't really mastered that self-validation. And you're like, oh, if I've achieved that goal, I find fulfillment and like purpose. I'll be like the classic if I earn that amount of money, I'll be successful. I'll be happy. If I lose that amount of pounds, I'll be happy. I'll be beautiful. I'll be whatever. And so then you end up chasing just like another goal and another, like it will lead to kind of like if you rely, if you kind of like outsource your self-worth on like external things, you're going into this constant cycle of seeking validation and feeling unsatisfied, and then you're doing the whole thing again and the whole thing again, and you're like burn out.
Yes, and that is really easy to do because how we define success.
I mean, we both, and I'm sure I'm speaking for you here too, I'm sure we've both been there, done that, got a shitty burnout t-shirt from it. Like, yeah. Like, I mean, we talk about it because we actually know what we talk about because we've actually been there and it was shitty. You're like, okay, so I'm chasing this thing. I know I'm chasing these things because I think this thing will tell me XYZ. So how do I stop this? How do I stop chasing this fucking thing? Because it will not tell me XYZ. I tried that before. Now I've lost all hope. So
right.
And
it comes with knowing your self-worth is not attached to the outcome. Right?
Yes.
Like it sounds so simple in theory, but it's like so complicated.
I'm like, yeah, that's like that's on my Chinese fortune cookie.
But it's really hard to like rewrite that script that's in your head. To go, right, like I'm just gonna show up, do the best that I can, not worry about that.
Okay, Casey, then here's the $1 million question. How do we rewrite the script in our heads that keeps us attached to things because we want them, but at the same time detached so we don't want them to tell us things about ourselves that aren't true?
For me, it was really hard, and it's still something I from time to time unpack because it doesn't just go away. So,
well, and at each level you are at, there will be something different where you're like, I've never experienced this before. Maybe.
Exactly. So it's always evolving. But for me, I really had to define what success looked like for me. I had to get really crystal clear for myself, like some parameters that were not attached to any outcome. Like, for me, showing up as my true authentic self was a big goal, and not like, because we all like
oh, I love that goal.
We hesitate when it's social media. Yeah.
Or mass people.
Of you, and it's like, well, no, I'm just going to, pull back the curtain. You're going to see all the messy bits and everything in between. So, defining it in a different way. Like, I want my clients to achieve a level of success. And if that means they, need an extra call or they need extra time, like, I'm not going to sit there and go, no, line in the sand, like, not okay. Like, I've changed kind of my outlook on defining what it means to me and defining what it looks like in my business. And that it helps with, understanding, like, it's not just about the money. The reason why I started this was to help one woman, right? And reminding myself and bringing it back there all the time and going, you just help someone. There was no monetary value, but the whole goal was to help people.
Yeah. What is helping? Yeah. And really, I like that. And then you always kind of like circle it back. Okay, my goal was one person. I have one person in front of me now. We're at the end of our call, and like, she's in here, whatever. Like, what is helping her now? Yes, it might be going over time, console her, and so I'll do that, right? Because it is in my power. So there's no negative downside for me. I don't have to be somewhere else. Like, I have the time, like, whatever, like, you can always find a way to make it work. And that by no means it's not black or white. That by no means should be you undervaluing your services, you're not charging for whatever it is you do, whatever. None of that shit. Like, no, right? But to kind of like really bring back the humanity and be like, what would help this person in this situation right now? And sometimes we tend to,
right.
I mean, I'm all about boundaries. I need boundaries. Otherwise, I wouldn't, like, anyone who's dealing with chronic illness or other illness knows without boundaries, it all goes up in flames. But sometimes, you really got to be, you know what? Today, all the stars align and I can say, fuck this boundary. And we got to focus on what is needed right now.
Right.
That is.
And you can give yourself permission to, on the fly, change the boundary or, just for this moment and put it back in place. Like, it's not a boundary that is set in stone. My boundary is very movable. It is flexible and it's on the fly. I give myself permission to change it.
Yeah. As you, and you can also as you can give yourself permission to be like, no, this is a hard boundary because I'm not willing to, I cannot afford to, whatever. Right? Really give yourself permission to do the uncomfortable part well. And really, that goes back to giving yourself permission to shed the parts that are no longer serving you, right? That we talked about before, right? Like, just give yourself the permission to. And if you're not able to give yourself the permission to change or to be loving and kind to this new person you are, at least give yourself permission to be curious about who she is, right? Because I feel that starts with being curious enough to be like, oh, who's she?
Yeah, it's almost like redefining oneself. Because you have to get curious of like, okay, if these are the parameters I'm given to work with, like, how do I operate on those parameters? And where's my wiggle room? What is this? And it's a trial and error process. Like, some of it, like, you're like, oh, that didn't work. Gotta do something else, and you figure it out along the way. But if we're not curious to begin with, we're gonna bring our old stuff with us every time, and then we're just carrying around garbage bags with us.
Right? Yeah. No. We're
right.
Yeah, we'll let it go back. We don't need more.
How many bags of garbage can you carry at some point?
Yeah. And I'd say most of us can endure carrying too many.
Right.
And that's one of our problems.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, no one's going to address it because we're like, I'm just supposed to, what is it? What is the term? I'm supposed to just fight through it or weather the storm or,
suck it up. But yeah. And again, I mean, it's not black and white, right? There is truth about it. You have to weather the storm. Otherwise, if you decide early on, I'm not going to weather the storm, then half the battle is lost, right? But at the same time,
there's a better way to weather the storm. Like, you can have umbrellas, you can have a raincoat. Like, there.
Right, yeah. You can be better equipped at weathering the storm, right? You can have a better boat to weather the storm.
Whatever, like, I don't know. Like, you can have better equipment.
Yeah.
To weather it.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Yo, look for better tools. So we talked about a lot about burnout and how, like, a lot of the common ones I see in people starting their businesses or kind of like grind and hustle, like, been there, done that, and then kind of like the sneaky one of, I'm gonna chase this fame because then I'm like a super exciting entrepreneur, And that's more sneaky. And I kind of like want to circle back to that because I know you brought something with us for like in the we'll link it in the show notes. It kind of like helps us to recognize burnout and or to kind of like make sense of it.
Yeah, so I just a bit about it's just like a understanding what burnout is and recognizing by asking yourself some questions about your own behavior and what your body actually feels when it's dysregulated versus regulated, because our endocrine and our bodies actually know when we're stressed out. It's just, are we listening?
Yes, and the mean thing is, they're not like our nervous system and our like hormone system. It's enough for them to stress out if we think we're stressed out, and not if we're actually in a stressing situation. So, I mean, basically, every time you think of stressing thought, you're saying to your body, stress, 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 and your body cannot really tell the difference between this is just a made-up scenario she had in her head. Yay, go her. Or if it's actually like happening around, right? I mean, to some degree, right? I mean, if you're chased by a bear or I don't know, then you have some sort of like primal instinct kicking in, which wouldn't happen otherwise. But the stressor, the biological, biochemical stressor, to some degree, are very much the same, whether you're just thinking about it or you're actually going through.
Right.
So all that letting past be in the past and not worrying about the future because you can't change it. Actually, there's actually some science behind it.
Right. It's like, and I think oftentimes you ignore it because they're just like push through. So you don't even see it because you're like,
yeah, just one more. Or like, or you're just, we're just so out of tune, right? Like, and then you have this one thing and everything kind of like crumbles down. And I remember when I burned out from Brit, my like tumbling down moment was when I was standing at my local shop and it didn't have my favorite kind of yogurt. I mean, no, but I had for me to function at the time, I need everything to go to plan. Like, it like, otherwise I could not have done like 70-hour weeks, like all the things. My poor boyfriend, she was like, it's not about the yogurt, is it?
Like, not even close. It's not even nothing to do with yogurt. The yogurt, right?
Hey, let's get you home.
The yogurt was what's the one thing that tipped it over the edge? And like, that's the thing about burnout is like, it's something, nothing to do with what's actually happening. It's something so minute and small where you're just like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, am I bothered by that I'm not stocking my favorite yogurt? No, I'm not. Like, I have another one. It's fine.
In a moment, it was everything.
Yeah. It was everything. Casey, this conversation was also everything. I feel like this was like also like I don't know, part coaching, part enlightening, part personal story. This conversation was everything. Before I let you go, I always have one last question. I'm sure your answer is going to be great, and I'm going to put it on my list. What book are you currently reading?
What book am I currently reading?
Or what audiobook are you currently listening?
The one I just finished one. I'm starting another one, and I can't remember the title off the top of my head. Oh no, I'm currently reading The Emotion Code on how to embody emotions and feel. It's a lot of like about disease and how it affects our emotions, affect disease, and it's really complicated. But
ooh, okay, that's definitely gonna.
And I also just finished The Myth of Normal by Dr. Mete, which is so enlightening.
Yeah. I read parts of it, not that once. And I was like, ooh,
oh boy, at the end.
Casey, thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom.
Well, thank you. I appreciate and I'm so grateful to be here with you. Thank you.
And just like that, we've reached the end of another journey together on the Scenic Route podcast. Thank you for spending time with us. Curious for more stories or in search of the resources mentioned in today's episode? Visit us at scenicroutepodcast.com for everything you need. And if you're ready to embrace your scenic route, I've got something special for you. Step off the beaten path with my Scenic Route affirmation card deck. It's crafted for those moments when you're seeking courage, yearning to trust your inner voice, and eager to carve out a path authentically, unmistakably yours. Pick your Scenic Route affirmation today and let it support you. Excited about where your journey might lead? I certainly am. Remember, the Scenic Route is not just about the destination, but the experiences, learnings, and joy we discover along the way. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on the Scenic Route again.